Opinions expressed on Carter's Corner are entirely independent of the opinions of Radio 89.7 FM's Wise Board, talented management and wonderful sponsors. Carter's Corner respects the right of each individual to hold and express an opinion unfettered by the shackles of political correctness and without fear of quivering in the quicksand of cancel culture. Radio is for entertainment, not censorship.
No, about to start. Just waiting.
Oh, you certainly are.
We're live on Carter's Corner, and I think that just gave it away who our special guest is for today. We have Senator Malcolm Roberts all the way from Canberra on the phone with us right now. So first of all, before we get into it, I'm Travis Carter for Carter's Corner. We've got Aaron Malloy across the road. And on line one, say hello, Senator Malcolm Roberts. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Travis. Lovely to be here.
Oh, it's fantastic having you on the show. We've been trying so hard for a long time to get what I like to say a real politician, a politician from the federal government onto the show. So thank you for answering our call for assistance and coming onto the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation, mate.
No, not a problem at all. So during the week, I'm not sure if many people are aware of this. One of the things we like to do on the show is we love to get people who don't normally have a chance to get onto the radio waves to have a talk about what's going on. So we love to give them a chance. Now, you've been in the upper house for the federal government, because you are a senator, trying to get a bill through called the anti-bail-in bill. Can you tell me about it?
Sure. It's in response to the Emergency Powers Recovery Bill or Emergency Powers Bill of 2018 that the government and Labor combined to push through with only 7 senators in the chamber. Wow. Excuse me. And what that did was it gave APRA, the Australian Prudential Regulatory Authority, which oversees the banks, the power to do a bail-in. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. So a bail-out is where a bank gets into trouble and the government takes taxpayer money and gives it to the bank to get them out of trouble. Doesn't matter if the bank's got into trouble of its own greed, its stupidity, its recklessness. The government takes taxpayer money and gives it to the bank, and that's a bail-out.
Yep.
Now, the IMF and the G20 said that they don't like that anymore. They've done it many times, but they don't like it anymore. It's not fair to taxpayers. So what they want is a bail-in. Now, a bail-in is where a bank gets into trouble financially, and it takes money from its depositors. So anybody who has a deposit with the bank, it takes that money and it converts it into shares. So because the bank is in trouble, the shares are basically worthless, just pieces of paper. But they've taken your money and they can get out of financial trouble.
Now,
what you then have... Sorry?
Yeah, I'm just not quickly jump in here because you can't see Aaron's face at the moment. He's not aware about what's going on at the moment, and he is looking absolutely disgusted. So
I cannot believe.
He should be.
Look. I know that the government is, pretty well used to legalising theft, but are you kidding me? You are allowing the banks to just reach into your account and just destroy your life. Absolutely disgusting. It is pure and simple theft, nothing else.
Now, the other thing...
And it's common around the world. Cyprus has already done it. The Greeks have done it. New Zealand's just regulated it recently. I think Britain has it. I don't know, but many other countries around the world do, in fact, do this.
It's almost like the banking sector... It's almost like the banking sector seems to donate to politicians. How interesting.
Well, I wonder. That's a very, very good question. And I think it's pretty commonly known that the major banks donate to both the tired old parties, Labor, Liberal, and what happens with the bail-in. So you as a depositor, you've got a worthless piece of paper. You've got two choices: either sell the worthless piece of paper and get nothing, or hang on a few years, maybe 5 years, until it all turns around and you can sell the bank shares then for money. But you haven't got that money right now. So if you just cashed in, if you're a retired person, cashed in your super or part of your super, and you've got that in the bank, tough. You've lost it. You've got nothing to live on. If you're a farmer who's gone 10 years in a drought and bad seasons and suddenly got a bumper crop, you've got $1 million and you've just put it in the bank, tough luck. If you're a pensioner, if you're a worker, if you've got any money in the bank, you lose it. If you're a small business It affects check and savings account. If you're a small business, you can't pay your staff. That's it, gone overnight.
And cash flow is king, let's face it, we're on a small business level. So having that taken from your account, yeah, exactly that. You can't feed your family and you can't pay your workers. Absolutely disgraceful.
Exactly.
Now, another thing I want to quickly bring up out this, one of the things you said there was 7 senators who passed this. Now, how many senators in the federal government is there all up?
76.
So
So you need a quorum of more than that.
Yeah, so how did this pass when that's not even like regular, like that's 10% of the sitting senators?
I think it was because it was sushi afternoon there in the lunchroom, so they were busy elsewhere. Unbelievable.
That blows me away. Like the government is there to supposed to regulate this and make sure that our politicians are doing the right thing. Where's the anti-corruption watchdog on this? How did they even allow this to get through with such a low number of senators?
Well, the reality is that there are many things that a senator has to do. Meetings with constituents, meeting with lobbyists, researching bills, writing speeches, engaging with his own staff or her own staff, discussions on bills with other parties. And so the day is really full. And sometimes we start at 9:30 and we finish at 9:50 in the evening. Sometimes we start at, say, 8 o'clock, and the Senate doesn't start until midday, but it finishes at 7:20. So the hours aren't short. So there's no. So it's not as though people are just sitting down idly, not going to the Senate. So what happens is, if the quorum is not there, I think the quorum's a quarter, then someone has to draw it to the attention of the president or whoever's presiding in the chair at the time, and then they call for a quorum, and people rush down, and away it goes again.
Yep.
But if no one calls that lack of a quorum, then it just continues. And so...
and let's be honest, they're absolutely aware that the numbers aren't there. Nobody in their mind can go, oh, hang on, that the 7 people is enough. Nobody can be that thick, quite frankly. That is just disgraceful. To me, that's just abuse of the process.
I do have a quick question as well on that one. Is there any...
if I could just answer Aaron,
go.
though.
Yeah.
What happens, Travis and Aaron, is that the reality is that there are 36 Liberal National Party senators and 29, I think, Labor Party. And then there are 9 Greens, maybe less than 29, 25, I think, Labor. And then 9 Greens, 1 Centre Alliance, 1 Independent, 1 Jackie Lambie, and 2 One Nation. So what happens is people understand the way votes are going to go. Yeah, and so they just add the numbers up and they work out what's happening. So sometimes the One Nation vote is really critical because our combination with the government will get something home or not get something home. Or the Labor Party and the Greens plus one other plus us will get the Labor parties through.
Well, this has always been my point.
It's all done in advance in a way.
Okay, this has always been my point. When I talk to people about politics, I always say, always look at the minor parties. You need to give them the balance of power because obviously otherwise you can stack the deck. So this is the great thing about having smaller parties, in that position because common sense can actually come into play, and negotiations will actually happen that wouldn't happen when they've just got complete control of the place.
You're absolutely right. That is fundamental to freedom in this country, Aaron, because Labor and Liberal, let's face it, they quite often gang up together and just whistle things through. And if it was only half and half, then whoever's in the majority in government just whistles everything through, no problem. So by having minor parties, medium parties, independents, it enables a much more rigorous debate, and holding people to account. And quite frankly, the Labor Party quite often helps the Liberal Party because it knows it'll be in power one day. It hopes it will be. And then it doesn't want to be burdened by the same system. So they go easy on each other. They pretend to fight really hard, but they go easy on each other.
Remember
the real accountability comes
Remember
from
the
us.
old days when we had the Democrats, the whole keep the bastards honest.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I love those ads.
So, absolutely. Now we've effectively it's really just the minor parties that are keeping those bastards honest. And so therefore, you need to support, I don't want to tell people how to vote, obviously, but in my opinion, it's very important to vote for a minor party, support people that promote free speech and some critical thinking, like One Nation, I guess, in this particular case.
Yes, and some of the things happen outside of outside of the Senate chamber, for example, Aaron and Travis, yesterday, even though we lost the vote on our bail-in bill, and all we did, essentially, you make two changes. We defined a deposit account, and we said a bail-in can't occur. Because there is a power in APRA, Australian Prudential Regulator, to convert deposits. There is a power there; it's already there. Right. And then, the first thing we did was we said you cannot convert a deposit account into using a bail-in. The second thing we said was that we cannot APRA cannot order a bail-in.
Yep.
And they were just minor changes, and our staff did a really elegant job, very, very minimal changes to the regulation, but essential. If it hadn't been for our bill, then, well, as it is, still is, because the government defeated us, APRA has got the power to do basically whatever it thinks is reasonably necessary. You define reasonable for me. Yeah. So depending on the circumstances, the bureaucrats will define it any way they want. But what we know is, while the government, the Treasurer, the Prime Minister, the APRA, and the Reserve Bank, and I think ASIC, all said, no, it's all sweet, no, they can't do a bail-in. The IMF, which has been pushing this regulation, said quite clearly that the regulation that was brought in 2018 by the Liberal National Government can enable APRA to order a bail-in. So all we did was we just said, let's make it bloody clear then, because the government is saying we can't do it. Okay, well, there's indecision there, so let's make it clear. Let's just minor tuning. Now, the Australian Banking Association, they said that if there's any confusion, support our bill.
Yeah,
so there's nothing to lose. There's no power removing from APRA. There's no defining a deposit account anywhere else, so we're not affecting any other thing. The government just dug its heels in, and Labor Party dug its heels in. But in the speech, after I delivered my speech, the Labor Party and the Liberal Party were both very, very soft in their speeches. They were pulling their words, being very, very careful. And what happened today was that the Treasurer's Department, the Treasury, sent a senior advisor over and said, let's have a talk about this. And they recognise now that my argument is correct and that it needs to be remedied.
And
so
I guarantee
even though we didn't get up, it will be fixed, we hope.
And I guarantee you this won't make it to the media. So we have had a couple of questions come through. So for the listeners out there, we do have a text line. So if you do want to ask Malcolm a question, 0418 897 897. And for all our listeners over east, you can listen live at 897fm.com.au. One of the questions, or it's more of a statement, has come through, excuse me, on the text line. There's no regulatory, hang on, where is it? There is no bail-in laws for cryptocurrencies, gold or silver. So that's very, very true. There is no current bail-in laws for cryptocurrency on that. Now, are you aware, Malcolm, of any laws or plans to add these sort of bail-in laws and onto cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, I think that's the Russian one, and also onto things like gold and silver?
No, I'm not. However, that leads into the second topic that one of my staff sent you, Travis, and that is the cash ban bill.
Oh, yes,
the
I'm
cash ban
really
bill
looking for that.
Was introduced by the Liberal Party into the lower house. And the Labor Party, first of all, when we heard about that, one of our staff monitors legislation coming in. He's very, very effective on finance and banking.
Well, I'll cut you off there for a moment, Malcolm. So we do have to go to a quick sponsored message. So what I'd love to cover the cash ban once we come back from the message.
I absolutely want to talk about this, for sure.
Are you happy to stick around for a little bit longer with us?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm enjoying it. That's good.
Fantastic.
Great to hear.
So what we're going to do is go to a quick message, and then we're going to have a song, and we'll be right back after that. You're listening to Travis Carter on Carter's Corner with Senator Malcolm Roberts and Aaron Molloy. All right, we're back on Carter's Corner. The boss is shaking his head, and we are back in the studio with Travis Carter, Aaron Molloy, and live from Canberra, just stepped out of chamber, we have Senator Malcolm Roberts from One Nation. So welcome back to the show, Malcolm. Before we went into a quick break then and a few messages, we started talking about the cash ban. So give us an update. What's going on with it?
Okay, so when it was introduced into Parliament by the Liberal National Party, one of our advisors got hold of it first before anyone else. He then alerted the other crossbench senators, and they went, wow, they weren't aware of it. and they discussed it, and immediately they recognised how bad this was. And then our advisor and I reached out to the Labor Party, Stephen Jones, the shadow finance minister, and we went over to his office and had a lovely chat. And regardless of that chat, Labor abandoned its core and voted with the Liberal Party to push it through the lower house. So the cash ban bill is essentially, it bans the use of cash, that's notes, for transactions more than $10,000. And some people might say, well, $10,000, that's pretty high. But once it's in, it's easy to amend it down to $2,000 or $1,000.
That's right.
And the other thing is there are many negatives to that because it also had provisions in it to get rid of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And the other thing is, of course, in rural areas, sometimes a farmer or someone in a rural town where there's no ATM, might say to a friend, hey, when you're coming back from Perth, can you bring this for me, please? And that person buys it with a credit card, and then when they get back to the farm, they just hand over the cash.
Right. Okay.
So cash is really important for farmers. It's really important for many, many people. What the government did, it said that we need to get rid of cash because of we want to eliminate the black market. The reality is that the numbers just don't stack up. There are so many opportunities and such a huge amount of opportunity in dollar terms for the government to crack down on cash and black market, but it doesn't do it.
As far as I'm concerned,
the real black market.
Yeah, go on.
The real black market is beyond the government's control because it's in the form of criminals and so on. And all the criminals would do with a cash ban would be buy houses and sell houses at a cheaper rate or a more expensive rate, and that's how they would launder money and transfer the funds around. So with the cash ban, what it does is it forces you to put your money in the bank.
Of course it does.
Now do you see what happens when they bring in a bail-in?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Everyone's money is in the bank.
Look, to me, this is
and
just
they can trade it.
This is George Orwell at work, as far as I'm concerned. I think that we're going through a stage in this country where freedom of speech is basically disappearing. We're getting facial recognition everywhere we go. We're being completely monitored. It was supposed to be fiction, and it's just becoming the new norm. It's unbelievable.
So just to jump in here as well, we have had a message come through on the text line, so 0418 897 897 from Neil B. The bill was pushed through the Senate on Valentine's Day 2 years ago. The government changed the order of business when only 7 or 8 senators were in the chamber, not a quorum. So that came from Neil Bill on the text line. So it was Valentine's Day they actually pushed this through. So that's just going back to the cash in.
That was in 2018. That
Correct.
was to do with the bail-in provision, not the cash ban.
Yeah,
so the cash ban went through the lower house, and then there was so much flack from within the Liberal Party and within the Labor Party that Liberal and Labor both got very nervous. So rather than bring it into the Senate, they consigned it to a committee from the Senate. Now, the Senate committee went through the bill and actually recommended it be passed, even though the feedback in the report on the bill was not positive. They still concluded that it needed to be passed. So, but it's been sitting on the Senate order of business, Senate notice paper, for months now because they're not going to bring it in because there has been so much opposition, particularly in Victoria within the Liberal Party, that the government is very worried and Labor is very worried that their members will cross the floor and vote with the crossbench.
I've got
Everyone else, except for Labor and Liberal and Nationals, is voting it out.
I've got a question.
So they know they've got a job on their hands.
But, okay, if this becomes the case and we get rid of cash, I mean, how are Labor going to branch stack? Really? I mean, what are we going to do with it? Where are we going to get our Aldi bags?
All right, 10 points.
There's a third point too, and that is you know about negative interest rates. Interest rates have plummeted in many countries around the world. They're negative, which means you pay the bank money to keep your money in the account. So
Australia, banking
what
fees.
happens then is with the cash ban, they drive everyone into the banks.
Yep.
They drive everyone to use bank fees for transactions. They drive everyone into paying money to keep the money, your money in the bank. And so negative interest rates, cash ban, and bail-in become the perfect trio, the trifecta, for controlling people.
Oh, definitely.
And putting the pressure back on people.
Now, there's actually some things that everyday citizens can actually do to fight back on this one. I've just had a message come through from my producer. He has actually gone through and made a Senate, a Senate submission in regards to the risk and dangers of, first of all, the cash ban and how everything that can happen with it. So it looks like you got a bit of a fan in the studio here, Malcolm. So yeah, the producer Dwayne is right on to it.
Yeah, we've got lots and lots of fans. There's the Citizens Party of Australia went out, and I must give them a hat tip. They're really very, very well informed on most matters, especially financial and banking. They've got a number of thousands of members and followers. They went out and said, write in submissions to the cash ban bill. They haven't had that many submissions for a finance bill in a long, long, long time. It just flooded the government. And also they peppered the government MPs and the Labor MPs, and then they started to really get worried. And there's a fellow a Liberal Party member in Victoria, Stephen Holland, I think his name was. He organised at one of the branches a real revolt, and that really put the wind up the Liberal Party. So at the moment, the cash ban bill is just sitting on the notice paper, and it's last on the notice paper, so it's way down the list. And we think it may drop off, but on the other hand, we hear from one of the members of Parliament in the lower house that they will bring it through eventually. So it's hard to tell what they'll do at the moment.
I wonder how much pressure they're getting from the power brokers within the parties of Labor and Liberal to try and push it through and try and paint it in a better image.
Earlier, Malcolm used a word that just makes my hair, and I don't have much of it, trust me, stand up, and it was lobbyist. Oh, my God. Every time I hear that, I just hear filth. It's as simple as that. Lobbyists in every single part, whether it be, everywhere from the financial sector to family law, they just simply have way, way, way too much control of what's going on through the Parliament of Australia. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Okay, so let's throw a question that's off record, off what came through. Malcolm, do you have any stories of lobbyists behaving badly at Parliament House? What's some of the dirty tricks the lobbyists do to try and get bills through that probably shouldn't be put through?
I don't have too much experience in Parliament yet. I had 14 months in the first time, got knocked out with citizenship, even though I was the only one who actually had got his citizenship in order. I didn't do it by the nomination date, so I got knocked out. When I came back, I've only been in now 17 months. So I'm still a newbie, and I don't. And also lobbyists know that I'm dead straight, and they know Pauline is dead straight, so they don't come near us with any shonky deals. And if they say something that's slightly off colour, we will let them know. So they know not to come near us. So we're not going to see people like that too much, but we are aware of some pretty stupid things. There are some things that are so stupid they must be corrupt, but I don't necessarily have evidence of that. We're getting evidence in certain areas. You've heard of the Sports Rorts affair. We've got really serious questions around the inland rail allocation, route adoption. But most things in Canberra can be explained not by conspiracy or corruption, but by stupidity, idiocy, ignorance, and just plain stupidity, ignorance, and what's the other one I keep saying?
Well, I think those words. I think those words should be the new campaign for the Greens, personally, or the Socialists, as I like to call them. But
the Greens are lunatics.
They really are. Honestly, it's just a cesspool of mental illness as far as I'm concerned. The Greens Party. Every time I hear any of them speak, I slap myself in the forehead. I can't. I love the environment. I'm very environmentally focused, but they're not about the environment. They are about sipping lattes and rocking back and forward, sucking your thumb in the corner, because they are just absolutely off the trolley.
Exactly, and because you love the environment, you know that the Greens are no good for the environment.
Oh, look what they do to the farmers.
Because you love the environment, you wouldn't vote for Greens, because the Greens' number one duty is about control. They're there to make sure people's freedoms are removed and control is replaced. Here's the sad thing, Aaron. You're absolutely correct, but it gets worse. Because what happens is the United Nations unelected bureaucrats drive the policies that the Greens... So the Greens, they drive policies around the world, not just Australia. The Greens then adopt those policies, put them into place. Then the dopey buggers on the left side of the Labor Party they then fear that their left wing is going to be cannibalised, so they go green as well. And then the Liberal Party says, oh my goodness, some of the woke people in the Liberal Party say, we better get those votes before some of our left-leaning Liberals go in there. So that means UN policy, which has never been voted on by you or me or Travis, is then adopted by the Greens, it's put into place by the Labor Party, and then it's followed by the Liberal Party. Now, if you don't believe me, think about climate. There is no evidence whatsoever, I can tell you more about this in a minute, there is no evidence anywhere in the world of carbon dioxide from burning hydrocarbon fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, affecting the climate.
Now, I've done the
anywhere.
reading. I have done the reading on this, and actually, we're getting. Oh, I should see the messages coming through at the moment. Fantastic. And
We'll grab him in a moment.
As someone who does care very much about the environment, I am 1,000% behind you on this one. It is an absolute load of bull, and of course, the climate's going to change because it's a planet. Okay, we have all sorts of factors that are moving the weather around. But the reality is we tried global warming, okay, and when we really didn't get that to work, we thought we'll do a brand change, okay, we'll make it climate change because, we need to buy some support, some socialism and control of the peeps.
You're a shocker. Just quickly on the...
Exactly, control.
Yeah, control all the way. So on the text line, we just had another statement's come through. Sorry, this one's actually a question. Will One Nation and the Citizen Party continue to work closely moving forward in the future, as it is a great alliance? Are you able to share any internal party politics, what's going on in regards to alliances and working together with different parties? What's going on?
Yeah, we work actually with anyone that comes up with a policy that puts Australia's national interest first. So occasionally, even the Greens, most of their policies and their actions are destructive, highly destructive, not only to the environment, but especially to the country and to families. But if the Greens come up with something like, for example, they're on board with us with the Integrity Commission for Parliament, overseeing the integrity of our Parliament. So we support them on that, and they support us. But we will work with any party. We actively work with the government, of course, because and it doesn't matter who the government is, Labor or Liberal, but at the moment it's the Liberal Nationals. And the government, people don't understand this, but the government, of course, introduces most of the bills. It's governing. So we have to work with them. And that means even the Labor Party, the majority of the time, vote with the government. And the Labor Party, sadly, votes more than 50% of the time with the dopey Greens, the destructive Greens. I call them the most destructive force in Australian politics.
The Labor Party do not represent who they were designed to. No. They do not represent the common, your mums and dads, the families of Australia in any way, shape or form anymore. They are now pretty much a party of St Kilda, latte sippers and vegan terrorists. I'm very sad about that. I mean, look, as someone who cares about this very deeply, I like the fact that everyday Australians should be looked after. Okay, they shouldn't have to be the silent majority. They should be able to go about their lives without being constantly harassed and controlled and so forth.
Hey, Aaron,
we've got the Labor Party who are not doing their job.
Have you actually read the Labor Party constitution?
Oh, no, it's got the dirty S word in there. I know.
We're a democratic socialist party. That should explain everything for you. They're a bunch of socialists.
Yes.
They want socialism in Australia.
I know, but I believe in a social. I don't know what's the word. A safety net. I believe in looking after those who are less fortunate and all that sort of thing.
And that's just being a good person.
Well, I just think it's something we should do. So sorry, my friend. I know that I'm running off on a tangent, and I will stop.
No, it's all good.
So coming back to the question, we work very closely with CATAs, for example. And we work very, very closely with the Citizens Party of Australia, Citizens Electoral Council, sometimes called. We find that Robbie Barwick and Wilson Tsai are fabulous. They know their stuff. Their staff get on very well with my staff and with Pauline's staff. And so we understand each other. We don't adopt everything they say because we can't. Just no time. But they're constantly sending us stuff, and we're constantly assessing it. We're very happy to keep working with them. I know, oh my goodness, it's gone a blank. I've forgotten the man who's in charge in Melbourne. But one of their founders, Maurice Hetherington, is a tough man in his 80s. He looks like he's in his 50s, and feisty, but he's very well read. These people have the country at heart. They have freedom at heart. They have private enterprise at heart, or personal enterprise. Very, very good people.
So awesome. The thing that I'm taking the most out of this interview that you come in with us today is it shows that One Nation, and especially yourself, Malcolm Roberts, you're here to literally represent the Australian people. You're here to stand up for the people that have been shafted. And it looks like, and I can tell you now from personal experience, I've lost all faith in Labor, the Liberal parties. The Liberals over in WA, especially, we've got an election coming up, March 13th, I think it is, next year. They've just got no backbone. They've got no spine. They're just totally abandoned the Western Australian people. And it's just great seeing that there is potentially a party that can actually stand up and give any of the ruling parties out in whatever state it is a real run for their money, like call them into lines. And as we said earlier, keep the bastards honest, because I don't know if you've seen what's going on over in WA, but Mark McGowan is running haywire. He's just on a massive power trip over here.
I call him Narc McCoward, actually. I just find him absolutely... He is on such a power trip, that man... It's unbelievable.
Now, I do want to ask another question. We've got another guest coming in later today. His name's Richard. He's actually from the Anti-CCP Association, Perth. So my understanding is he's actually the founder of the group in WA. He was actually one of the organisers of the first ever Tiananmen Square rally, where the Chinese consulates was actually caught spying on him in Perth, which is absolutely awesome. After seeing that image from what came out with the so-called Australian soldier molesting a child, I can't remember if it was stabbing him, shooting, or doing something to the child.
Stabbing.
How come Labor, I have not seen anything from anyone in any Labor Party calling on China to retract it, apologise, or whatnot? It's always coming from the federal Liberal government. There's just absolutely nothing. Like, why isn't Labor doing anything to call this out?
Well, it's not just Labor, it's also the Liberal Party until very recently. And the Liberal Party is split on this issue. There are many woke Liberals, and there are some solid Liberals. Craig Kelly, Jared Rennick in the Senate, Craig Kelly in the lower house, George Christensen to some extent, Lou O'Brien in the Nationals. These are solid, very solid people. Erica Betts from Tasmania in the Liberal Party. But so many of the Liberals are woke. Now, Rex Patrick introduced into the Senate 5 times, a call for an inquiry into the Australia-China relationship. Not into China, not into specific things they're doing, but the relationship, because it's so very important, strategically, militarily, security-wise, espionage, commercially. We've got so many eggs in the China basket. And we spoke very strongly in favour of that inquiry. All 5 times, the Liberal Party and the Labor Party voted en masse. Not one crossed the floor against having an inquiry into the relationship.
Now, I can't speak for the national government, okay, from that point of view, and the parliament there. But in Western Australia, if you have a look through the donor lists every time the elections come through, it becomes very clear why that sort of thing takes place.
Even with the law stopping it. So
it is absolutely blatant that we have politicians in Western Australia here are completely owned by the Chinese, and that I make that statement, and I'll be tarnished as being racist. There's no racist bone in my body, because clearly Chinese people is they're just members of our society. It's the Chinese Communist government I have an issue with, because they shouldn't be having control of. How dare they have control of another country? It's absolutely disgraceful. It's dangerous.
Well, they own so much of our water rights, water allocations. They own so much of our real estate, they own so much of our industries, and then they're not the real culprits, Travis and Aaron, because the real culprits are the people who make these stupid decisions in this country. For example, I'll just confirm what I said a little while ago. The CSIRO, that there's no evidence anywhere in the world for this climate change rubbish. It's a con to get control, exactly as Aaron said. Now, the CSIRO, I'm the only politician anywhere in the world to have held a government agency to account. And I've done that in 3 presentations. All of them, they failed. Now, they have admitted to us that they have never said that there is danger from carbon dioxide from human activity. Yet what have the politicians in Liberal Party and Labor Party told us repeatedly, and the Greens? That the CSIRO advice is what drives them to these policies. But there's no danger. So if there's no danger, why have we got these policies? Secondly, the CSIRO has admitted to me that today's temperatures are not unprecedented.
No, they're not.
So that means we didn't cause them because they were warmer in the past. Today's temperatures are not unprecedented. The third thing is, when you press them on their claims, they eventually have no empirical evidence, which is what decides science, hard data, hard observations, physical observation. They don't have anything in the structure that proves carbon dioxide from human activity affects climate. None. And that is the only proof in science that's needed. That's the only thing that's accepted. What they do is they rely on models which are erroneous and unvalidated and have failed repeatedly and only failed. None of them have succeeded. So that tells you that they haven't got empirical evidence because, Aaron, if they did have, they would give it to us.
Of course they would. Look,
And then the fourth thing is...
science has become the science of feelings, okay, not facts.
What happens, we should be having a science-driven policy, but what we have is policy-driven science, which, of course, by definition, is not science.
That's right.
Now, I do remember in one of your videos that you did ages ago, it was on YouTube, you actually called out CSIRO to actually debate you. Now, I want to know, have they ever accepted your invitation to a debate?
No, no one has. I've called out the Greens, I don't know how many times, but I first challenged Larissa Waters, the Greens leader in Queensland, to a debate. Yeah, terrible.
Don't get me started on that one. Trust me.
Yeah, she is. Her policies and her statements are so damaging and inflammatory and dishonest.
Dishonest.
I still can't believe what she did with Cheryl Moody when the fires were on.
That was disgusting.
So I was ropeable that day. So
10 years ago, on the 7th of October 2010, I challenged her in a public forum. I was on the forum panel with her, and I turned around and said to her, I challenge you to a debate on the empirical scientific evidence and on the corruption of science. She jumped to her feet. I've never seen her move so quickly and said, I will not debate you.
No.
And then when the night finished, about 10 minutes later, I started moving back from the microphone towards the chair, and she said, I won't debate you. So that was 10 years, no evidence, no debate. I challenged then Dina Talley, who was leader of the Greens 439 days ago, and Larissa Waters at the same time in the Senate, and said, I challenge you to a debate on the empirical evidence and the corruption, and I also want you to provide the empirical evidence. And every couple of weeks or so, I just remind them it's now day 422 since you've done this, since I did this, and you haven't come forward with anything.
I wondered how you knew the exact date.
I made a log, and I look it up every couple of weeks. I move the date forward, and I just add the numbers up. I can find it quite easily on my calendar.
Oh, look, you can add numbers up. I don't think Larissa can.
Maybe the crowns and colouring in book, and
she can't even stay inside the lines. That one, trust me.
I was watching the streams for the Family Law Court inquiry with Pauline Hanson and Larissa Waters.
Yep.
I don't think there was many of them where she actually rocked up in time. So I'm wondering if she can actually tell the time as well.
Oh look,
evil.
She is an evil woman. Actually, genuinely an evil woman.
She has gone after Pauline relentlessly in public and in the Senate because Larissa Waters only ever says that domestic violence, comes from men on women.
Yep.
She repeatedly raises it. It is a lie. It is a gross distortion. We know that domestic violence is perpetrated by both males and females.
Yep.
We know that men are being murdered and women are being murdered, sadly. We know that children are being murdered by both males and females.
Yep.
And so what
on that front,
very worried about is that Pauline's family law inquiry will unearth the reality, and that's what it's doing, and they're terrified of that.
Well, we know that actually women murdering children is actually, I believe it's 72% higher rate than with men.
Yep. Also, they don't call it murder, they call it filicide.
I know.
So that's different sentencing.
No, that's why I use the word murder, because I hate the word filicide, I just find it repulsive. But I sit here as a male victim of domestic violence. It's as simple as that. And, I find it absolutely soul destroying that, and I deal with a lot of people who are in that position, men and women, I might add. And currently we've got over 40% of the people who are suffering from domestic violence are male. So 40% of the population there, of people that genuinely need help, are being completely tossed aside because, quite frankly, there's no money in it, right? No money in it. There's money in...
For White Ribbon there is.
No, there's money in a false narrative. That's what there's money in.
Yep. So,
Aaron, it's even worse, again, because males have... When it comes to taking out, what do they call those?
Violence restraining
DVOs,
Yep.
those kinds of things. If quite often, we have many instances of this. Women rock up and just make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
The male has an order slapped on him
Yep.
straight away. No evidence is needed.
I'm writing a
Then-
book actually called 17 Words based on that exact principle. 17 words.
A friend of mine's just been slapped with a VRO. He doesn't even know the woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And then what happens is quite often they're slapped with that DVO or whatever it's called, AVO. They're slapped with that just before it goes into court.
What a surprise.
The divorce proceedings go into court. And then, of course, the male rocks up in court with a violence order against him, and that doesn't go well, so he doesn't get custody of the kids.
That's right.
Next thing, he's starting to become very, very depressed. He's got a charge around him for violence, being violent. There's often some lies told. The man is then ashamed in public. He's afraid to go out. He holds up in a house. He then drops out of work, and then it's a downward spiral. Next thing, he takes his own life.
Current
And
statistics. Current statistics.
That's really
The
sad.
current numbers, okay, are 41 men per week killing themselves because of parental alienation. It's up from just before COVID, it was 28. COVID is being used as an excuse to keep fathers away from their children as well, and it's bumped the number from 28. So from 4 a day, which was absolutely disgusting, to 41 a week now. It's just, this is...
Are you able to get me those figures?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Easily.
Yep, no problem.
easily.
If you can send them to Travis, and Travis, you can send them to our office, please.
I've got your
Because-
media person's contact details, so I'll definitely get it all
Yep.
through for you. Now, one thing I do want to ask, because we do need to wrap up in a moment.
I don't want to. I tell you right now, can you come back every week? As far as I'm concerned, you're very welcome here.
And I hate to say Aaron's the boss,
Thank
so
you.
you've got the tick of approval here. So I do want to get one last bit of a curly question in here. There's one person within One Nation who's probably even more famous than yourself that I would absolutely love to get on the show. She's the flaming redhead, Miss Senator Pauline Hanson. What's the chances of getting you to wing it that Pauline can join you on the show?
I'll tell you a couple of things. She is very, very honest, completely honest,
Yep.
and she is very strong, very courageous. She's a gem to work with. If she doesn't agree with you, she'll say, "What do you mean?" And sometimes her energy and her passion just go whack, and you think you've just been lasered by two yellow eyes just piercing holes in you. But that's you. That's not her. And then but what she'll do is she's got the courage to listen, and she'll say, "I think we should do this, but what do you think, Malcolm? Or what do you think to some of our staff?" And if they come up with an argument, or I come up with an argument, she changes on the spot, straight away, no compunction.
Now, that's interesting,
and
Malcolm.
She's not
because-
afraid to say, I got
I've
it wrong.
seen her
and,
do that.
And
Yeah.
that's better.
What I was
Now,
just
having
going to
said
say...
that,
oh,
she's
go on.
also very, very independent, but she's also extremely dedicated and loyal to this country, and she would be the hardest working member of Parliament there is. So I will encourage her to do it, but, mate, she has so many media appearances, she has so many parliamentary engagements. The government contact her for her advice on how to get things through. They sometimes ask us, how should we do this? And she and I will give them advice. She's got so much experience, and she's totally honest, so that they rely on it. But
The thing
the
I will
honesty
say-
is a strength,
Yeah, go
because
on.
it's hard for the government to get around that, because if they try to double-cross her, as they did a couple of times early on, they pay the price, and she doesn't let them get out of it.
A couple of things
So
worthy of mention, though.
I will ask her,
Yes.
but I can't promise.
Well, I tell you right now that she would be incredibly welcome, and she would not be attacked and so forth. And don't get me wrong, if she's wrong, I'm certainly going to call her out on it, but not like you're seeing on your 7 networks, 9 networks, and the ABC, who want to actually destroy her reputation.
And we're not Koshy.
We're not Koshy. Now, I will actually throw in a little further on that. About 2 years ago, I was very anti-Pauline Hanson, okay? Very anti, okay? Because I believed the narrative. I believed the media of what I'd actually heard. And then somebody actually challenged me, said, you know what? Go and listen to her speeches from start to finish and then come back to me. And I did that, took that little personal challenge, and I went and did that. I won't mention who it was. And when I did that, oh my, the sound bites I've been listening to for 20 years were completely dishonest, and I am now a very big supporter of her. Simple as that, because I now see that all the things that the media wish to pretend were, her personality traits are completely dishonest. And yes, I do believe you. I think that she is the hardest working politician, hardest working senator we have in this country right now, and she genuinely looks after and cares for the everyday Australian.
When we got into the Senate in May, June, July of 2016, I went to our little head office in Albion in Brisbane, and we were met by 3 Aboriginals from the Northern Territory.
Yeah.
And they were there because they wanted to meet Pauline and ask her to help them with their problems.
I think I remember
And what
that
you'll
story.
find is, when we came down to Canberra, there's a wonderful Vietnamese restaurant, very high value food. They've got a couple of gimmicks that I can tell you about later. But genuine people, all Asian. The restaurant is full of Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't get out of the place because they all wanted selfies with her, because they know that they came here because they want a fair go.
That's right.
And they also know that because they've got the work ethic, they will get ahead. And they want her to protect the values of this country. And that's why Asians love Pauline. That's why the Aboriginals love Pauline, because she calls a spade a spade.
That's
and
right.
they're being done over by their own people sometimes in the Aboriginal industry. And she comes in and cleans it out.
Yeah, could not agree more.
Yeah.
I would look. Absolutely welcome to have Pauline in the show, and I will shut my mouth. And yes, I'm
we really
supposed
do need to wrap
yes,
it up,
yes,
unfortunately. So, on behalf of the station, myself, Aaron Malloy in the studio here, my directors give me big thumbs up, and some of our other guests, I think they thoroughly enjoyed the time that you've been on the radio. So, again, thank you very much for coming on. We'd love to have you back, so I'll liaise with your staff about getting you back on. Final comments before you head off. You got like a minute to go, Malcolm.
Well, the number one problem we have in this country is Federal Parliament House, not as the building, but as the people it contains. Every major problem in this country emanates from Parliament House in Canberra. And every major problem is underpinned by a lack of data and a lack of facts. Policies in this country are driven by vested interests and by ignorance and by contradiction of the data. This country is being done over. It's being screwed by gutless, ignorant, stupid politicians who don't have the balls to actually stand up and tell the truth. And it's more fear and ignorance that's the damage, but that's a human frailty. And what ends up happening is that we're, at the moment now in Canberra, more and more people are controlling people, and Australians are losing that freedom that is necessary for creativity. Our basic services, water, energy, property rights have been destroyed. We're being over-regulated. We're being shut down by political correctness. This country is in a mess, and I always start my speeches with the words, as a servant to the people of Queensland and Australia, because my job is to represent the people who elected me, not those who voted for me, but the people of Queensland who elected me, and to represent Australians in the Federal Parliament House. My job is to serve, not to control.
Absolutely.
And that's the basic thing that Pauline and I are trying to do. And we're trying to get a change in federal parliament to get our politicians back to serving people. And thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you, Travis.
Hey, not a problem at all. So that was Malcolm Roberts all the way from Canberra. You're with Travis Carter, Aaron Malloy on Carter's Corner on 89.7 FM. Again, listen live at 897fm.com.au, or you can get text messages in if you want to ask questions on 0418 897 897. We're going to go to a quick message and then we'll song, and then we'll be right back after these breaks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. Talk soon.
You're welcome, fellas. I'll get to Pauline.